let's talk a little bit about Indonesia before going ahead.
Hello, welcome to the program. I'm Adrian Finnegan. It began with the police killing of a young motorcycle rider in Jakarta on Friday, but the scale of unrest since has rocked Indonesia. Violence involving police and protesters has spread to other cities, and troops have been deployed on the streets. The sight of fellow motorcycle taxi drivers and their couriers in their uniforms at the funeral struck a chord with the public. People like the driver killed are familiar to millions, delivering to workplaces and houses across the country, part of the army of casual labour, which plays a central but poorly paid role in the economy. Apologies from the president, Prabowo Subianto, have failed to bring calm. So why is there such an eruption of anger? What wider issues are at play? And what will the president and his government do next? We'll try to find out from our guests in just a moment. But first, a report from Joel Evans.
Anti-government demonstrators are making their voices heard in Indonesia. Protests spread across the country after 21-year-old Afan Kurawan, a motorcycle taxi driver, was run over and killed by police in Jakarta on Friday. That he was a casual labourer in a low-paid job ignited fury, the demonstrators rallying against the cost of living and the lack of jobs, as well as police violence and alleged political corruption.
We're very disappointed in all law enforcement agencies, especially the police chief. Please pay attention to this. Drivers are also human, as well as commoners, as said by our lawmakers. We're very sad that one was killed, and we all felt it.
Jakarta's police chief has apologised for the death and promised a full investigation. 7 officers were found to have violated the police code of ethics. The president paid his respects to the family and attended the funeral.
On behalf of myself and the Indonesian government, I would like to express my deepest condolences and sympathy. I am deeply concerned and saddened by this incident.
There's been outrage too at revelations that members of parliament are getting a housing allowance worth more than $3,000 a month, on top of their salaries. That's 10 times the minimum wage in Jakarta. Many Indonesians see politicians as part of a corrupt elite.
All of this tracks. I don't think this seems like a very classic story of state abuse of power against a working class citizen, and then therefore all the working class people are immediately angry because of its pent up rage over decades of abuse done by this is for West Papua. No. This is because a driver was killed. If you were to ask a lot of these guys, sorry, I was waiting. No. If you were to ask a lot of these guys what their thought, the guys protesting now, what their thoughts on West Papua are, they will immediately say, no, terrorists.
As well as the capital, protests have been held in Jawa Barat, Surakarta, Bandung, Lombok and Medan. Troops have joined police on the streets, using tear gas and water cannons to disperse crowds. In Makassar, in South Sulawesi province, demonstrators set fire to a regional parliament building.
That's insane.
Killing several people.
That's insane.
Protest organisers say they want MPs' salaries cut, an increase to the minimum wage in line with inflation, and accountability for alleged crimes committed by police and politicians.
I pay all my taxes. I'm a tax-compliant citizen, but I don't know who my taxes are going to. The people inside the House of Representatives building don't listen to the complaints of their own people at all.
It's the biggest crisis yet for President Prabowo Subianto, who took office in October. In a video posted online, he appealed for calm and urged people to trust the government and his leadership, a call that so far seems to have fallen on deaf ears.
I'm tired of saying Jakarta method isn't a good book since yesterday on this platform, and I just remember there's base people in here. Jakarta method whitewashes Indonesia's crimes against Papuans, doesn't it? That's the reason you don't like it. I'm pretty sure that's what Jakarta method also, Jakarta Method talks about the anti-communist killings of Indonesia, but then when talking about West Papua, it just doesn't do a good job. That against decentralized puts every people on the island as Indonesians, compared it to Afghanistan, USA-centric, red washes the Sukarno government. Yeah, okay.
With anger at economic difficulties and inequality showing no sign of easing. Joel Evans, Al Jazeera, for Inside Story.
So, who is Prabowo Subianto? Well, he was a former general in the Indonesian military, serving in the campaigns in East Timor and in West Papua, where the military was accused of war crimes and human rights abuses.
Oh, so there's the connection. There it is. Okay, there's the connection between West Papua and East Timor. Got it. I was wondering if there was some sort of connection between West Papua and East Timor. I knew there had to be. There it is. The current president, Prabowo Subianto, is the guy that is basically responsible for committing genocide against Papuans. Understood. Okay. The guy that is now the current president of Indonesia is the same guy that is a direct general. He is a direct war criminal. Prabowo Subianto. 1000%. Okay. He's straight up tied to the previous fascists. Yes. Yes. Okay. I understand. No, he's a war criminal. It's literally like electing Gotabaya Rajapaksa. He's a war criminal, or like Shavendra Silva, basically. The Sri Lankan equivalent of the Jakarta Method would be if someone wrote an entire book about how the J.R. Jayawardena government, at the behest of the United States, crushed the JVP, but then completely whitewashed the Tamil genocide. That's basically what the Jakarta Method is for Indonesia. It's like if someone wrote an entire book about the JVP and how the US was responsible, but then did not talk about the Tamil genocide adequately, or basically, kind of took the JVP side of this and said, like, no, actually the Tamils were reactionaries.
Prabowo was never prosecuted, but was banned for a time from entering the US over the allegations.
Rare USW. Credit where credit is due.
He moved into business and politics after being discharged honorably from the military in 1998.
Served as defense minister. This is Gotabaya Rajapaksa. No, this isn't Modi. This is Gotabaya Rajapaksa.
He campaigned unsuccessfully for the presidency twice and served as defense minister between 2019 and 2024. Prabowo was finally successful last year and became Indonesia's 8th president, but critics say that he ran a sanitized campaign using social media to promote a fatherly image. Let's bring in our guests. From Jakarta, we're joined by Abigail Lemuria, co-founder of What Is Up Indonesia.
That's not her name. That's not her name. Abigail Lemuria. Yep, there's Prabowo in East Timor. Okay, I don't know the full extent of what Indonesia did to East Timor, but my understanding is that what Indonesia did against the Timorians, the East Timorians, is basically amounts to a genocide. It's a genocide. Okay, that's what I understand. It is a genocide, and they're now committing genocide of Papuans. It is a settler colonial genocide that Indonesia is currently engaging against Papuans. Their first colonial victim, exactly. The Kraras massacre was a series of mass killings done by the Indonesian army with Timorese Hansip members. In August and September 1983 in Kraras Vikeke municipality, East Timor. More than 200 civilians, mostly men, died in the killings. The region is now known as the Valley of the Widows. Until the late 1970s, most of the residents of the Bibaleo lived outside of the control of the Indonesian army. In 1979, the residents of Bibaleo who were captured were relocated to Vikeke. In 1981, they were relocated again to a settlement north of Vikeke named Kraras. The Indonesian army's control of the region was held by 2 Timorese civilian units. The Hansip were armed and paid by the Indonesian military, while the Rakyat Terlatih, the trained people, were not armed or paid. In the beginning of 1983, the Indonesian army decided to downgrade some of the Hansip members in the region to Ratih. But some Ratih refused to turn in their arms and instead joined the pro-independence Falintil. Resentment against the Indonesian occupation was compounded by sexual harassment of local women by the Indonesian army. All of this tracks. None of this is surprising to me. This is not even 1%. It's a genocide that Indonesia committed against East Timor. And my understanding is that is also what they're doing in Papua right now. They're ethnically cleansing the Papuans. Talk about Indian Maoists, they seem base. How about you suck my dick? This is a great documentary style. I don't know if I can watch this. Let's see. Paradise Broadcasting. Oh, yes. I know these guys. This guy worked with Boy Boy, didn't he? I know this guy. Arden, I sent you an article as well. Hold on. Let's talk about the Gecko Project. For months, we've been tracking these Indonesian soldiers posting on TikTok about their deployment. These videos showed driving excavators armed with machine guns. Okay. And patrolling full villages in battle gear. They are among the thousands of troops in the Indonesian government has deployed to the region of Papua to transform a vast area of rainforest into farmland. Fear in raiders in Papua, how thousands of Indonesian soldiers are forcing through a vast agricultural project in indigenous lands and forests. I don't know if we can read. Let's get through the video and then we'll read this, okay?
A digital media platform that unpacks Indonesian sociopolitics. From Melbourne, Australia, we're joined by Vedi Hadiz, a professor of Asian Studies at the University of Melbourne.
Isn't it surprising that countries aren't afraid of doing Hasbro-style propaganda and fearlessly yassify occupation and war crime? I think that is the biggest lesson that people in this space need to learn. That there are no good countries. There are no good countries. There's no such thing as a good country. People are so desperate to cling on to an idea of this, oh, well, America sucks, so there must be a country that isn't America and that doesn't suck. I am very sorry. Countries are countries. They are extremely complex organisms. They're complex machines. Of course, a lot of times those countries are going to engage in settler colonialism and genocide. They are extractive and dominatory, yes. There's not a good thing that can come out of states. You can use critical thinking for every state actor. No, I'll go further. Every state sucks. The very concept of a state is oppressive. That is it.
And also in Jakarta, we're joined by Wirya Adewena, Deputy Director of Amnesty International Indonesia. A warm welcome to you all. Abigail, let's start with you. Tell us about the mood on the streets right now. How long has this anger been building and why? To what extent was the death of Afan Kurniawan the last straw for people in Indonesia?
Yeah, I think this anger definitely did not happen overnight. It's been going on. It's been building for months.
Come on. She's proving that there are descendants of the lost civilization of Kumrikandam. Why else would she have the name Lemuria? See, Indonesia is part of the lost continent of Kumrikandam. You don't understand. It stretched all the way from Madagascar to Indonesia. You don't understand. And her name proves it. Also, commoners in Indonesia. Think about it. Okay.
And some may even argue for years. And it's all because of both economic and political frustration. As we know, Indonesia is not in a good shape economically. It is worsening. We're experiencing sort of a collapsing job market as well, where thousands has been laid off and there's a lot of unemployment. And instead of a helpful and compassionate response from their leaders, these people are continuously met with policy that worsen the situation. For example, an increase in tax that were attempted multiple times. And not only that, they were also met with indifference or even...
Wait, hold on. Was Subianto elected democratically, or what? Was he elected via election, or was he just put in power? Election. Okay, so it is. Oh God, this is Gotabaya Rajapaksa. Oh my God, this is literally Sri Lanka in repeat.
Mocking and tone-deaf responses from their representative, people who are supposed to be representing their voices. And so it's not so much as the economic struggle. I feel like people are more angry at the arrogancy that they receive, and they are just fed up with being treated that way.
The president, as we said, apologized, appealed for calm, asked
Indonesian citizens protesting because the government is treating them a fraction like they do Papua and Timor. Yep. Indonesians protesting right now. They're like, what are we, Papuans? You can't do this to us. The Javanese living in Jakarta, like, who are we? Jakarta is sort of pluricentric, but Java Island being like, who are we, the Papuans? How dare you treat us this way?
People to trust the government and his leadership. Can they be trusted?
Well, he may have said that, but more recently he has instructed the chiefs of the police forces and the military forces to respond decisively to the public unrest, saying that the unrest has caused a lot of damage to public.
By the way, if it wasn't abundantly clear, by the way, like what my position on West Papua is. Free Papua. Like I don't think I have to make it abundantly clear, but if in case you were not, just in case you had some sort of doubt that I was somehow going to be on the Indonesian government side, free Papua, like free West Papua, like free West Papua from Indonesian settler colonialism and the whole island of Papua, to be honest. I don't know much about Papua New Guinea, to be fair. Even if they become free, aren't they going to become a state? Hey, Moke Fellow. Hey, man, if you think that being an anarchist means that you cannot champion the liberation of a group of people just because it'll eventually turn into a state, you are an idiot. I am pro-Palestine despite knowing that Palestine is going to become a state. Like, I'm not stupid. Like, I know how it works. The point is we work towards the abolition of states.
Infrastructure. So I think we may be seeing.
I'm gonna go make some more coffee. I'll be right back. I will say this. Don't we want it to be a country? Eventually, no, we do not want the concept of a country anymore. We do not want the concept of countries. The current Indonesian president's wife is Suharto's daughter. And Suharto is this guy, right? Yep, I agree with you, but Papua is very ignored and silenced here. Are you in Indonesia right now? First off, apa kabar? And then second of all, I know in Jakarta and in the rest of Indonesia, Papua is not really thought about. But when it is brought up, when Papua is brought out, it's the same kind of Zionist bullshit that you hear from Indonesians, that you'll hear from Israelis about like Palestinians. It's the same shit. Sukarno is an IRL Mario Wario situation. Organizing anarchists amidst authoritarian consolidation in Indonesia. An interview with Perhimpunan Merdeka. I want y'all to understand Indonesia has the population of America, so if it stayed communist, we would be in a completely different world right now. No, Indonesia is the largest Muslim country. I was thinking like I want to visit Indonesia, or I wanted to visit Jakarta, but after this, I don't think I will be able to go visit Jakarta. And honestly, probably shouldn't be going to Indonesia in the first place, if I'm going to be honest. I saw a clip where Asmin was saying this is happening in Indonesia because it's a Muslim majority country. Of course he did.
Rhetoric of let's everybody work together to keep the calm, to one where they might be moving towards more repressive policies.
Okay. Wirya, at the end of last year, Amnesty issued a report calling for Indonesian police to be
also don't go to Indonesia. If you had plans to go to Indonesia, do not go to Indonesia. Out of solidarity with our Papuan brethren, do not go to Indonesia.
Accountable for, quote, repeated use of force against peaceful protesters. How much of a problem is police brutality in Indonesia?
Well, that's just the thing. That report is not the first time that we had actually published a call for structural reform in the body of the police in Indonesia. We had a full-length report in 2016. We published a report in 2020 where we monitored various incidents of police excessive use of force when they use batons, tear gases, water cannons improperly against protesters. We published another one in 2022. We published another one in 2024. It seems to me that most of the things that Amnesty International Indonesia is doing is just watching the police, because so many human rights violations are conducted by police when they are facing demonstrators. And building on what Vedi has just mentioned, it is increasingly concerning because now the military is coming into the picture as well. And we know that military forces are not suited for law enforcement duties. It is unthinkable to see that the president, instead of trying to de-escalate situations, he seems to double down. It is simply unwise, I think irresponsible, and the president should have started with an actual apology that is followed by a clear, concrete action plans in which he outlined series of policies to reform the police to ensure that such things are not happen again. He didn't do that. Instead, he bring the big guns into the foray.
Abigail, people are obviously very angry. What do they want from their president and politicians? Policy reform, structural changes to governance, dialogue? And do the protesters have a united aim? I mean, some form of cohesion. At the moment, as we said, there's a lot of anger on the streets, but do the protesters have a cohesion?
I've straight up never heard someone say boycott Indonesia across the board over Papua, which is kind of crazy, I guess. Is that a good crazy or is that a bad crazy? Bad crazy, people just don't know? No, I mean, like, do you mean like what I'm saying is good or is it bad? They've also, to be fair, we had a Rohingya person on, and they've also treated Rohingya people like shit. So it's not just is good, needs more awareness. Yeah, boycott Indonesia as a whole. Like, just don't go to Indonesia. Forget Bali.
Cohesive mission.
Yeah, I think the protesters definitely have a cohesive demand. And amongst other things, the demands is for first, the state budget to be used more efficiently for programs that actually matter and not wasted on lavish benefit for the representative. And that for the state budget to have more transparency and so into what they are being used for. And they also ask for the representative, for those who have been mocking the people or who has been saying ridiculous things to be let go from the House of Representatives. And so that the representative actually represent the people, and not just, elites who say whatever they want. And I think thirdly, obviously, so that the police officers who are responsible for the death of the young motorcycle driver to be held fully accountable and to receive full justice. And so that there are also some reform in the police department.
Betty, what's gone wrong with democracy in Indonesia?
Well, the problem
What's
is that...
gone wrong with democracy? Bro, are we seriously asking the question, what has gone wrong with democracy in Indonesia? The whole problem with Indonesia is that it has always been democracy for me and not for thee. Came out, I know, I'm getting coffee. I know, hold on. I got pressed the moment he said, what is wrong with democracy in Indonesia? What the fuck are you talking about? Ask the Papuans and the Timorians what the democracy meant to them. Holy shit. Indonesia literally tried to ban the One Piece flag, man. What democracy?
No matter how hard or impossible it is, never lose sight of your goal. These famous words were said by a pirate leader, not in real life, but in the world-famous Japanese anime, One Piece. It is quite popular the world over, especially in Indonesia. So much so that Indonesians have taken these words to heart. This Southeast Asian country is celebrating its 80th Independence Day later this month. It is really a big deal. Their president, Prabowo Subianto, has asked people to fly the national flag. Instead, people are hoisting black flags, the black pirate flags with skulls from One Piece. They believe this is a silent protest, an act of defiance.
Who is this? Palki Sharma. Palki Sharma is a news anchor originally at Wion, W-I-O-N. She's a Sangi's not the right way of describing what her take is. Bandung, Indonesia, ANCOM flag. Let's go. ANCOM plus Luffy flag. Yes. Yes.
Kasih jalan!
Fantastic combination. I wish Indonesia a happy anarchy. I wish my people on bikes, I wish Asia would discover mufflers. I've seen a whole lot of ANCOM Antifa flags. Yeah, there's a huge anarchist movement in Indonesia. Yeah, you guys didn't know this? See, this is why you can't just read Twitter. You actually have to see what's going on. There's actually a thriving anarchist movement in Indonesia. What is this? New drop poster action. Okay, I'm guessing this is in Jawi. Dude, this is sick. Stop police violence on the people in Bahasa Indonesia. These are hard. This is in Jawi. It's Indonesian / Malay. It's Bahasa Indonesia / Bahasa Melayu, written in the Arabic script, which I can't read. I don't understand. You're just saying Bahasa Indonesia twice. Okay. Listen, I have no dog in the nasi lemak versus nasi goreng. Goreng. I don't even know how to pronounce it. Those are both Indonesian. Okay. Okay, boss. I've tasted both and they are both delicious. It's the same dish. They just have different names.
went wrong with it from its earliest inception. If you will allow me a few seconds on this, when Suharto fell in 1998, a lot of people thought that, okay, we'll have all the nice things now, democracy, human rights, and all of that. But it's not as simple as that. The old forces that were nurtured under Suharto, the old politico-bureaucratic business alliances, simply regrouped, and they reinvented themselves as democrats and reformers, and they took over the political parties and the parliaments and the various other institutions of political and economic governance. And the reason that they've done this really is that these institutions, as they had been under authoritarianism, under democracy, still basically serves to allow these oligarchic elites to take control of institutions of the states, the authority that they have and their resources for the purposes of their own private enrichment. And this is why you see that the gap between rich and poor has been increasing, that there's a great deal of distance between those in power and the people who are ruled, and why there's a great deal of animosity towards the rulers from the ruled.
So, Vidi, what did the president mean when he urged the public to be vigilant against, quote, elements that always want to cause unrest and chaos? Could the current unrest be working to anyone's benefit politically in Indonesia? Might there be parties in whose interest it is for this to escalate?
Okay, 2 points. One is that that sort of statement talking about sort of behind-the-scenes actors, and often they point to supposedly foreign actors, is it is taken from the old playbook of Suharto, the old dictator. He used to say that all the time. Whenever there was any public unrest, he'll say that there's some foreign interest behind it.
Damn! This is the calling card of every global South country, by the way. This is the calling card of every global South country.
Behind it. And that is something that politicians and generals continue to say in Indonesia. But that does not mean that no matter how genuine and organic the grievances of the people are, that elites
this
may
is,
not
by the
take
way,
advantage.
What he's describing here, what Suharto used to do. We watched an entire rant about that yesterday. We watched Arnab basically do exactly what Suharto is doing, what this Al Jazeera interviewer has asked. We saw Arnab Goswami do the same thing about, oh, is America trying to sow unrest in Hamara Bharat by using Rahul Gandhi as a proxy or whatever? 0 cents. No, we know it's the calling card of every country. America doesn't do this in the same Fox News doesn't do it in the same way that these guys do, where they say like the entire government is interfering in our affairs, but they'll say like, oh, Mexico is sending illegal immigrants with our votes. Mexico is sending gang members. I wonder what Vijay Prashad thinks. What does Ja Rule think about the whole situation? Where's Ja?
Advantage of them for their own purposes. And we do know that there has been intensification, at least behind the scenes, between different factions of the elites, which now, I think, are vying to try to...
Vijay, the man who went on ACP and was the oopsie my bad, was like, oopsie my bad? Oh, yeah. Wait, I didn't know he went on ACP. That's hilarious. Of course he did. Well, you see, comrade, we need to understand that Indonesia has a history of cooperating with imperialist interests. And so we don't know what might actually be happening in Indonesia. Who knows? It could be a color revolution. Who knows? Who knows? We need to actually figure out what is actually going on in Indonesia. Because Indonesia under Suharto cooperated with the United States to kill 500,000 people. So who knows? America might be engaging in a color revolution. ACP good. Oops, I'm sorry. I did not mean to. What the f is a color revolution? Okay, a color revolution, if I'm going to steel man this argument, A color revolution is basically when an imperialist country like the United States uses avenues with regards to social justice, like gay rights or LGBT queer rights, or especially, I mean, it's color revolution mainly because of that, racial equality, that sort of thing. When they use like social justice protests, or they use social justice movements to exist. Pinkwashing is probably not just pinkwashing, but they use that as a way to topple a government. It's ultimately backed by imperialist powers, usually non-violent, seemingly organic revolutions that are actually astroturfed by the CIA or equivalent imperialist powers. Bingo. The resulting revolution installing powers favorable to imperial powers. Bingo. That's what it is.
Nodding in agreement and shaking your head at one point. Do you want to come in?
Yeah, definitely, because I am in full agreement with Vedi in the sense that I am also shocked in how uncreative the current government is. They're bringing specters of new order into the current era. Indeed, the current president has been echoing Suharto's old playbook in calling legitimate criticisms against his government as foreign-funded, corruptor-backed, or only trying to sow chaos and disorder. And what we are seeing is how the government seems to be more focused, more interested really to frame legitimate and peaceful.
Former U.S. Marine saying that the U.S. funded riots yesterday. I don't believe it. Who is Brian Berletic? I don't know who this guy is. Brian is a former Marine journalist who lives in Thailand. Ooh, damn. I'm not going to say what I want to say about this guy. All I'll say is he does strike me as a passport bro. That's all I'm going to say. He moved to Thailand for the very reason that I think people move to Thailand. Don't diss Thailand. It's a great place. The people are so nice. Dude, Thailand is fucking racist. What are you talking about? How do you think Lao became into existence? How do you think Lao people were treated like shit by Thailand, by Thai people? Psychotically nationalist. Thailand sucks. Bro, every country can catch hands on this channel, man. Are you crazy?
Criticisms as internal enemy, as internal threat. It will seem to me that the government is more interested in ensuring that they have full control of the narratives, full control of the protests, instead of addressing the real and true concerns that the people have. It is something that
Maldives is safe. Okay, Maldives, listen, there are a bunch of stories coming out of the Maldives. I was memeing about going to the Maldives, but like, no, Maldives also isn't that great either. Like, Maldives is legit trying to crack down on journalism. Like, Muizu government is currently cracking down on journalism as well at the moment. And I want to cover that at some point.
quietly, creepingly push the army back into civilian lives, where army now has more control, more presence really in civilian government. So I guess it is what it is. We're looking at not only a responsible government in the way that they are doubling down on protests, we are also looking at how they are uncreative in bringing back old playbooks.
Abigail, what are your thoughts on what both Veri and Wiria were saying? Has the police's use of force against protesters this week revived people's fears that democracy and civil rights would suffer under President Prabowo?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about what hidden actor or foreign actor behind this that the government is accusing of this movement, but I know for sure that the people's anger is real. The people have been asking for change, have been asking for reformation for months and even maybe years, and they've been asking it peacefully. They've been doing diplomacy and things like that, but it seems like it keeps on falling on deaf ear. And so now the people are angry. They don't know how else to ask for help, and so they took it to the street and they took it to the protests. And I do believe that seeing this, like, this movement is organic. It's not made up. It's not paid actors. The people are real. I see a lot of people who, like musician, actors, influencers, even beauty creators, they are all speaking out, because it's not just labor protest. It's not just a student protest. It's not just the worker class that are frustrated. it is a collective frustration that cuts through all layers of society. People are fed up with how things are.
Ferry, how much of what's happening right now is the fault of the president? He's been in power, what, 10 months? Why has he failed to do so far what he said he'd do before he was elected and improve the living standard of ordinary Indonesians?
Oh, let's go. Bro. If only, I wish these guys had the same energy for this as they do for Papua. I wish they have the same energy for Papua as they do for this. That's like, I wish that was the case, but they don't, unfortunately. I trust the anarchists, to be honest. They've been calling it a genocide. No, I don't. Listen, I don't doubt that these guys have. I would be shocked if the Indonesian anarchists were somehow like pro-Indonesian occupation of Papua. I would be very surprised. I would be shocked. I wish there were as many widespread protests as there are for this, as there are for, I wish there was this level of energy for Papua as there was for this. But I love how everyone's beginning to realize that anarchism is not just like a Western thing. They're like, bro, there are anarchists in Indonesia? Bro, I thought anarchists were just like a Western ploy. There are anarchists everywhere. There are anarchists in Bangladesh. There are anarchists in Pakistan. There are anarchists in India. Yeah, dude. There's a thriving anarchist movement in Southeast Asia, in Thailand, and there's an anarchist movement in Vietnam, but the communists in Vietnam are not too fond of them. And they get fed jacketed all the time. The nature of anarchism is that a lot of anarchist movements aren't really going to go around calling themselves anarchists in the same way you might see Marxist-Leninists call themselves Marxist-Leninists or communists. Like, if I'm talking to an individual person, if I'm talking to someone that is not generally, like, if I'm talking to someone that's not in this sphere of, like, deep political discourse, I don't say this. I'll say, like, I'm anti-caste. I believe that caste should be demolished. I'm anti-patriarchy. I'm anti-capitalist exploit. I'm pro-worker. I would agree with that. I generally dislike labels. I think labels are useful for capturing exactly what you believe, for giving heuristics.
Things such as tackling corruption fundamentally, making sure that we have what is often called good governance and so on, is not actually in the interests of Indonesia's elites, including, I would say, the alliance around Prabowo. I mean, the Indonesian political economy is actually driven by the logic of systematic, massive corruption at all levels. So it would take a lot to actually dismantle all of this, especially since your origins really is within that system. Remember, he was Suharto's son-in-law. Secondly, he has actually created a situation where Indonesia's fiscal situation has become more unstable than it should have been. Now, under Jokowi, Indonesia's debt has increased, right? Foreign as well as domestic. That was to fund infrastructure projects, some social services, and so on. But under Prabowo, what he's done now is to go into all of these populist projects, like he calls this the nutritious food project for poor children and so on. This is taking a heck of a lot of money from the national budget. It's cutting services from the people and so on, and diverting funds into what are actually white elephant projects designed to make sure that he develops a popular base of support, independent of
very Modi-like. Dude, I've been saying this is Rajapaksa. It's not just Modi. Modi, he wasn't the leader. He wasn't a high-ranking leader in an active military conflict. Modi wasn't. Modi was the chief minister of Gujarat when the Godhra massacres happened against Muslims, right? But Rajapaksa was the defense secretary during the war.
Prior President Jokowi, who was responsible really for getting him elected in the first place. And these two are having a conflict right now.
Yes, it's a big tent movement, yes.
Maria, as we said back at the beginning of our discussion, President Prabowo had previously been accused of human rights violations in the late 1990s. What's Amnesty's view about where human rights are headed under him in Indonesia? Are you pessimistic, optimistic?
Well, I think we echo what everyone is having in their minds in terms of human rights, in that we are extremely, extremely concerned. I mentioned fleetingly about the passing of the army law. I think that is something that we should be very concerned about with the existence of military in civilian affairs, normalizations of the military presence in civilian affairs, including in public health, narcotics, and so on and so forth. But we are also looking at the coming criminal procedure bills which will expand potentially police and attorney power in Indonesia's judicial system. And those are things that are happening under the president. And looking at excessive use of police force, you were talking about earlier whether the president is responsible or not. Well, Adrian, I think the answer should be very simple. Of course, the president is responsible. He is the boss of the national police chief. And when we are looking at continuous failures in reforming the police, or probably not even reforming the police, ensuring that police face demonstrations properly, not using improper use of force, unnecessary and excessive use of force continuously from years to years to years. Well, we are looking at continuous failures on the behalf of the police, but when this kind of failures are persisting throughout the years, well, then we should take a look at who is responsible at the top, because the accountability finally at the end should go all the way to the top. And what is very troubling for me as well, right now, today, we are very angry because of the death of Afan, the motorcycle driver. But in 2022, the nation was also angry with the death of 135 people in Malang in the Kanjuruhan Stadium, because improper use of tear gas has pushed the crowd there into panic and into stampede. What did we learn? Nothing. Because tear gases continue to be used improperly.
Use of tear gas, by the way, okay, never mind. I was going to say something about tear gas.
Will expand potentially police and attorney power in Indonesia's judicial system. And those are things that are happening under the president. And looking at excessive use of police force, you were talking about earlier whether the president is responsible or not. Well, Adrian, I think the answer should be very simple. Of course, the president is responsible. He is the boss of the national police chief. And when we are looking at continuous failures in reforming the police, or probably not even reforming the police, ensuring that police face demonstrations properly, not using improper use of force, unnecessary and excessive use of force continuously from years to years to years. Well, we are looking at continuous failures on the behalf of the police, but when this kind of failures are persisting throughout the years, well, then we should take a look at who is responsible at the top, because the accountability finally at the end should go all the way to the...
This is Makassar. Dude, Makassar is like Sulawesi, right? It's Sulawesi Island. Or it's like on the island of like, what was it? Borneo, right? Yeah, it's on Sulawesi Island, isn't it? Yeah, Makassar is on Sulawesi Island. This is not like it's not even in Jakarta.
And what is very troubling for me as well, right now, today, we are
This is like not just Jakarta, it's a nationwide protest, it looks like.
Angry because of the death of Afan, the motorcycle driver. But in 2022, the nation was also angry with the death of 135 people in Malang in the Kanjuruhan Stadium, because improper use of tear gas has pushed the crowd there into panic and into stampede.
So the police also killed 135 people because of tear gas, apparently. And because of the so my understanding is that because the police chief ultimately reports to the press, this is the president's fault. This is the fault of the president ultimately. Is it, I have one follow-up question. Is the police force in Indonesia nationalized, or like, is it run at the federal level? Is it like a nationwide police force, basically? Or is it like the United States where you have regional police departments? The state capital's police chief reporting to the head of state is bullshit.
What did we learn? Nothing. Because tear gases continued to be used improperly. In Rempang, it came into schools. In Dagoelos, in Bandung, it came into people's houses. In yesterday's protest, it came into stations. We found footages where the police potentially used a quick release tear gas, which is a tear gas with small number of explosives that has been banned in France. If it is true, well, it is a very dangerous use of tear gas because in France, it has caused many of hands permanently injured and disabled. So just one example of one less lethal weapon shows that the government...
Wait, they all report to the defense ministry? Yo. Okay, so, oh my God. Okay, yeah, no, that's, so it is like Sri Lanka. Oh my God. Oh my God, you guys are cooked. Yo, you guys are cooked. Bro, who the let that happen? No, the local cops in the various regions, whether it be Sulawesi, whether it be Java, whether it be Aceh, I think Aceh might be different. Whether it be Maluku, doesn't matter. They all report to the defense ministry. They all report to the defense ministry. The cops report directly to the defense ministry. Aceh is autonomous. Aceh is governed a bit differently. Yeah, I know it's autonomous. I don't know how Aceh works in all this. Doesn't mean all the cops are basically military. Yeah, it's like almost, it's as close to basically saying, yeah, the cops are soldiers without actually, you know, saying they're soldiers.
Government does not learn. So what?
Okay.
If we look at the bigger picture, of course, amnesty is concerned.
Yep.
And of course, the people are concerned.
Abigail, what's the feeling? Can the government diffuse this peacefully, do you think? Or are we going to see more repression, police violence?
I think this is going to escalate further. I'm going to be honest. Max Mino, correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like this is going to escalate further. Wrong. Military answers to defense ministry, police directly to the president, but the people, okay. Oh God, that's even worse. Somehow that's even worse. Wait, the cops report directly to the president? What? That's insane. Oh my God, this is a literal police state. What's in Delhi for India is in the entire country for Indonesia, dude. Wow. It's still half and half. It really depends on how bad the protests will be. I'm not sure that they'll keep up the protest tomorrow yet, but if they do, martial law could be invoked.
To stop this, will it stop, or are we looking at a period of unrest in Indonesia?
I mean, looking at the trajectory and the things that the president has recently said, unfortunately, I feel like the trajectory is not really looking so well. Although I still think that the government still have a chance to meet people where they are and actually diffuse the...
They will not. This is Suharto's son-in-law. Like, come on. You think this guy is going to give it about reading the room? This is cope. I'm sorry. This is absolute cope. This is not going to happen. Do you think that a literal war criminal that got away with war crimes in East Timor and West Papua, just a lot of fear mongering so far, do you honestly think a war criminal that committed war crimes in both East Timor and West Papua, that is also the son-in-law of one of the worst dictators of Indonesia, do you think that guy has a conscience? Do you think that guy will somehow ever be, held accountable? No, he won't be. Like, he won't. Do you think this guy is capable of even reading the room? Prabowo is absolutely not capable of reading the room. This is going to escalate further. Not because of, I don't think it's purely because of the protests. I think the reaction from Prabowo is going to get worse. This is my prediction, in my opinion.
Situation. What people want is not more policing or more repression. What people want is simply for the representative to meet them where they are, to listen to their aspiration as per their job.
Which they're not going to do. He still hasn't gone mask off since he got elected yet. He hasn't yet, but There's a first for everything.
And instead, what do we get? The House of Representatives members are fleeing abroad, and some were seen doing shopping spree in China, and some were seen.
Listen, I say this. So obviously, I'm not saying that Indonesia is the exact same as Sri Lanka. I'm not saying it's a one-to-one comparison. The reason I'm saying a lot of what I'm saying is I've seen stuff like this play out in other countries under similar-ish conditions. Key points, presidential press release Prabowo. The chairman of the political party has taken a firm stance that members of the House of Representatives from each party who make erroneous statements will have their membership in the House revoked. The DPR leadership will revoke DPR policy. I don't know what DPR means. Including the amount of allowances for DPR members and the implementation of a moratorium on overseas work visits. Members of the House of Representatives are required to always be sensitive and aligned with the interests of the people. The government respects freedom of expression as regulated in Article 19 of the UN International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and Law Number 9 of 1998 concerning the expression of opinions in the public. DPR is House of Representatives. Okay. However, if during its implementation there are violations such as destruction, burning of public facilities, looting, or other actions, then they will be firmly dealt with by law enforcement authorities. There are indications of unlawful action that lead to rebellion and terrorism. The president has ordered the Indonesian National Police and the Indonesian National Armed Forces to firmly take action against every destruction of public facilities, looting against individuals. The president asked the House of Representatives leadership to invite community figures, students, and other groups to hold dialogue. This is just like the Aragalaya. I've been saying this, Bazooka Baby. I have been saying this. This reminds me of Gotabaya Rajapaksa. This reminds me of Gota. Yeah, no real sign of rebellion, terrorism against organization. That's a complete lie. No, dude, that's what I've been trying to say. This almost bar for bar reminds me of Gotabaya Rajapaksa and his treatment of the South and his treatment of Colombo and southern Sri Lanka and residual Sri Lanka.
Fleeing to Singapore or doing like work field trip to Australia while people are literally protesting, asking for them to hear their voice. And so I think if the president can somehow urge the House of Representative member to actually listen to the people, I feel like the people would actually feel like the situation would actually diffuse, because that's what actually instigating the violence. But not only that, also the justice and the accountability that I talked about earlier about about police brutality and the murder that took place during this protest. It needs to be addressed, and I feel like people will not stop until the government fully acknowledge these demands. But unfortunately, it's so far from seeing how they're responding, it's not looking so well.
Okay. Vedi, what's your feeling about where this is going? Will the government listen to people's legitimate grievances? Are they in any mood to listen?
I don't think so.
First of all, it was mentioned that a lot of the anger finally erupted because of the new perks that the members of parliament would be receiving, and it was considered to be them giving a gift to themselves, whilst a lot of people were still, toiling in misery and poverty. What a lot of people forget is that those perks had to be approved by the government. So it had to be approved by Prabowo. And as people have attacked the parliament for doing what it did for the purposes of enriching parliamentarians, they forget that this is also part of Prabowo's ploy to buy off parliament, to buy off parliamentary support for his policies, a lot of which are really difficult to implement in the context of a very tight budget. Now, what is going to be
very quickly? We're almost very quickly. Yep.
Okay. I think what will happen is that the chief of police will likely go. I think that the benefits for the parliamentarians will be reappraised, but I think there will be more repression and authoritarianism, and Prabowo will use this as a pretext to implement those things.
We must end it. Many thanks indeed for being with us. Abigail Lemuria, Vedi Hadiz, and Wiria Adewena. Thanks for watching. You can see,
President, there are acts of attempted rebellion and terrorism. I've seen this trick before.